What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today, I'm very excited to have on Ryan Joe on the Vertical AI podcast. Ryan is a computer science student at Purdue, and he's very knowledgeable and has a lot of experience in game design and computer science. I'm very excited to have him on. Uh, how's it going, Ryan?
It's going good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, as Peter said, I am currently a freshman at Purdue studying for a degree in CS. Not really sure what field I'm going to go in after I graduate, but I've got experience in a large variety of ranges in computer science, stuff from game development to software engineering, also web design and just algorithms, whatnot. So yeah, I have particular opinions about AI, so we'll definitely get into that later on.
All right.
Um, but yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, do you want to just like t tell us what what you've been working on? Any projects? Any interesting events that you've attended?
yeah. So when it comes to like, I'll talk about my classes first, like what they're kind of teaching me. So like right now, I'm diving into C, right? It's a pretty like low level language. Um, so I've been doing a lot of experimenting in C, but mainly I'm more experienced with like Java, C Sharp, um, JavaScript, right? So a lot of my personal projects take form of web design. Um, One project I've been working on is because I'm really into music production. It is creating like a website where people can create their own visualizers, like audio visualizers, using like um, the web audio API. So like audio spectrums, having a whole node system, so like they can create stuff that's adapted to audio, stuff like that. Um, because my original plan for college was to get an audio technology degree. So I didn't really, unfortunately, I didn't get into any of the colleges I wanted with that. I mean, I'm still happy with like a general CS degree, but um, I'm trying to mesh like music and art and with computer science. So a lot of my projects are heavily focused on like art side of computer science, which is why I also like game development a lot. Um, so yeah, stuff I've been doing, hackathons, right? Programming any kind of website based on topic, usually stuff that helps the community, right? So one project I did was like create a forum-based website, kind of like Reddit or Quora, where like it's more point-based, like Duolingo, right? It's more
Uh,
competitive forums, because I feel like competitiveness incentivizes people to get out there and do stuff. Another one was like a planning website, like a flow chart maker, um, kind of like a mix of Google Slides and like a diagram maker. I don't know. You could like create note cards and like connect them in diagrams and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of stuff. So
cool, dude.
we can go more in depth about whatever you want.
Yeah, sure. Well, so for your like music production project, right? Is it kind of just like you're building guitar like a site like Guitar Hero, except people can customize how they want like how they want their layout to be?
So it's not really it's less of a game and more of like a tool. Like,
Yeah.
have you ever watched like a music video where they have like crazy visuals to the beat, right? Like I know if you've seen my music
Yeah,
videos,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, like when the beat
Like
drops, like
spectrogram.
the
Yeah,
spectrogram
yeah.
goes off, like
Yeah, the spectrogram. They call those visualizers, right? So there's a couple websites that allow you to make those, right? A lot of them are like subscription based, so they don't have much customization. If anyone's familiar with music production and you know what a digital audio workstation is, I use FL Studio, which comes with a built-in program that allows you to make those visualizers. Um,
Mhm.
but it's really unintuitive, like it's super complex. So I was trying to make my own version of it, but more simplified, but also have the same customization. Um, so yeah, I've been like thinking of ways to do it. Like you can have something like geometry nodes from Blender, where like you have an audio source and you map it through stuff to your output and whatnot, or you just do like a layering. I don't know. There's a bunch of ways you can do it. But I've just been messing around with getting audio from the user, displaying it as a spectrogram, and then like how you can like customize it, right? Um, so yeah, it's just kind of a mix of web design and uh dynamic audio. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Um, yeah. So so do you want to like explain how the process is? Like do you use like a specific algorithm to turn the audio into like the visual part?
Yeah, so what I'm using for this project is HTML5, CSS, JavaScript. Um, I'm just using regular JavaScript, no different versions like React or Vue.js or whatever.
Okay.
Um, so pretty much there's a web API that's used by pretty much every browser that takes in audio. It's called the Web Audio API. Um, and it's like defaulted with JavaScript and CSS and HTML. So pretty much I'm just taking in the sample from any audio. You can put in anything you want, right? Every audio is built up of like um they're called bins, I think. And just like little teeny pieces of information based on like what the wave looks like at a specific point, right? So you just get that information and um you literally just run it through a for loop and you draw based on like where those points are, right? Um And I mean, there's many ways to do it. There's like you can base it off of pitch, off of volume, off of the literal like frequency mapping or the spectrogram. I don't know. There's a bunch of ways to
Right.
do it. But it's just like visualizing audio, right? I don't know. It's like there's infinite possibilities with it. But that's the basic way to do it, right? You get the sample rate, you get the bins, and then you just map them with by drawing lines on a
Like
canvas,
on the
right?
board. I see. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get the animations to work? Because like once you draw it, like it's always bouncing up and down, right? Like that's from what I've
Yeah.
those videos.
Yeah. So um there's animation loops in JavaScript built in. Uh, Pretty much you just like write a method that draws, say, I have a method that draws the spectrogram at a specific point. Um, and then in JavaScript, you can create like a method as an animation method. So you just infinitely loop through it, right? And each time you go through it, you just you move the timestamp forward a little bit, right? So you have a new array of bins. Um, and then you just continually map it, right? So just imagine it as like you're mapping one frame of the music as a spectrogram, and then you're just doing that 60 frames per second or whatever your FPS
Right.
is, right? Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Cool, man. Um, let's talk about your classes. So like what has been your experience like working with like a low level language like C versus Java? Like what are the main differences between the high level ones like Python, Java versus C?
Yeah, so they're definitely more intimidating. If you look at them like at face value, because what low level means is that you have more access to the computer's functionality, right? Like you can literally dictate how the computer accesses its memory, and how it stores things and like what it does with that. Like if you take Java, for example, you're not dealing with memory allocation at all. Um, Honestly, like if you take any college Java course or high school like APCSA, you're not going to be dealing with any kind of issues of memory space, really, um, because it's a high level language, right? It's super user interface oriented. It's beginner friendly. I mean, that's not to say I can't do a lot. It's just that you don't have access to the hardware like you do with a lower level programming like C. Or if you go all the way down like assembly, right? Assembly is like the lowest, almost the lowest you can get. Um, so you have to deal with stuff such as allocating or reallocating memory, being careful with like data leaks and stuff. Like it doesn't hold your hand through it as much as Java does, or any high level language. So C is an old language. That's the one I'm learning, right? Back then, when like C was invented, they had like maybe a thousandth of the memory space that we have today on our modern computers, right? So they had to create this program that allowed the users to program like really cautiously so they could like know where every bit of memory is, right? Um, it's like in Java, like when you program, Peter, I don't know if you still are programming. I know
Yeah,
you used to.
I'm taking
Um,
a Java course right now.
yeah. So it's like when you create like a class, for example, or um, just you want to store a bunch of information, you just kind of declare them as variables, right? You just store your information. and then you just use them, right? And there's like the idea of polymorphism where classes can inherit from other things and you can, use variables from other places and whatnot. Like you have to throw like all of that away for C or for like high level languages, because they're not object oriented, right? Um, you have to literally like get an address of where a variable is stored in memory, and you just gotta point to it and then change it directly in the memory. Um,
Uh, uh,
so like I mean, there's still primitive like variable operations. Like I can say int I equals 5. Like it works. Um, but it gets more complicated later down the line when like for example, have you learned about array lists yet?
Arrayless, yeah.
Yeah, so like
So,
dynamic arrays. Yeah, so
but
that's
they
like
still use traditional arrays, right? Like it's like a
yeah.
class of arrays, basically.
Yeah, so the Java array class is an object, right? The ways a computer handle an array is they just like it's like a row of memory, right? Each
Yeah.
item is spaced out. Um, I don't actually know if this is the same in Java, but if in C, if you like an array is literally just a pointer to a space in memory. It just points to the wherever the first element in array is stored, right? And then you have a buffer size to that goes you know how long it is in memory, right? Um, but like dynamic arrays, like an array list, are hard to do in C, right? Or they're not hard, but it's a lot more complicated. There's things called malloc and realloc, like memory allocate, reallocate. You have to literally like you have to play with the actual hardware of your computer a lot more to like dynamically change stuff and
Right,
whatnot.
right.
I don't know if this is getting too boring, but like
No, bro.
it's just
Like this
it's
is
a lot more
interesting. Pretty
difficult.
sure people
Yeah,
will be interested by this. Yeah. Well, okay.
yeah.
So basically, the main difference, right? It's Java. You kind of just create your own variables. So you don't have to interact with the memory. But C, like you're literally pointing to the memory allocations. Uh, like
Mhm.
like how does memory management work? Like,
Yeah.
is it just like a set of algorithms that you implement, or like what does that entail?
Well, I'd say, I mean, no matter where you're programming, if you're programming Java, you still want to be cautious about how much memory you use, right? Like it's still a thing you have to optimize. But with C, like you can get a lot more like lethal errors if you don't handle it correctly, right? Um, for example, print statements, or let's say if you're taking input from a file, right? You have a file of strings or whatnot, and you want to read them to variables, right? In Java, what you would do is you would use like buffered reader or whatnot with the file, and then you just literally read the lines, and you'd read it as a string, and you'd import it, right? First of all, in C there are no strings. It's just character arrays, right?
Yeah.
So, um, in C, if you want to read from a file, you have to get the address of a string, right? Or of a character array, and then tell the file to be scanned to that address. So I mean, it's not that complicated. You just put like an ampersand in front of the string, the character array, really. But in Java, that's a step you wouldn't have to do, right? Stuff like that. Like I don't want to get too complicated into this, but just you have to really think about where memory is a lot more than Java. And yeah, like you'll run into a lot more errors at first because it's kind of not as clear when things are breaking, right? Um,
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. Like a lot of the process is not automated as much, right? Like you're literally in control of every step of it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know it, bro, but like, do you think it's possible to like what's an even lower level of programming than assembly? Like is it possible you think to like code in just like I write a bunch of zero and ones and like that'll result in a program? Or like
I
I like like I control like the transistors, like I control like the electrical pulse of those things, and then like
I
I get a
if you want to
program.
do that, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I don't know too much about assembly. As much like the most that I can gather from what I know is that assembly is like if you've ever taken discrete math or something, assembly is like um bit like binary operations at a low level. Like you're just working with XOR or and NOR, that stuff. Like
Oh, really? That's how that
you're
works?
kind of working with yeah, like if you search up a program in assembly, you'll be like, what the hell is going on here? It's just like a lot of like logic. Um don't take me on this because I don't write in assembly, nor do I know how to read assembly, but that's kind of what I've gathered. Um, so it is like you're pretty much working with bits at that point, which is what you're kind of talking about, right? Um, I don't, as far as like actually writing zero and ones for programming, like for a computer, I don't know how feasible that is. Um, but you kind of have to be insane to do that at this point. Like in modern technology, like there's no reason to be doing that. I
Yeah, I mean, you
think.
got so
I don't
much
know.
memory now, right? Like there's no like, you're a billionaire,
Well,
man.
memory is one thing, but like,
It's
how are
true.
you gonna read that?
Yeah,
Like, how are you just gonna read zero and ones, right? But yeah, I don't honestly know how that would work. I think there's a lot more you have to think about there.
sounds good, man.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna take I'm like the next course that I'm taking is gonna be C. Like I'm taking data structures right now. So, you know,
Mhm.
it's good to know about this before I
Yeah.
jump into it.
I mean, don't be intimidated by it. It's just like you have to change your mindset a little bit, right? Um, how's data algorithms, by the way? I just wanna
Yeah, well, like
it's
right now I'm just learning about like arrays and like how like the memory is allocated. So,
hmm.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, that
Yeah,
relates to
I
this,
mean
right?
like in the in CSA like we talked about arrays, right? But we didn't talk about like how it actually works in relation to memory. Like now we're talking about that. We're talking about linked lists right now. And also like
Mhm.
stacks, queues. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many data structures. They get pretty complicated. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're pretty useful to know. Yeah, I haven't taken a data algorithms or data structures class yet. I think that's like next semester, but I feel like it's covered in most CS courses anyways. Like you kind of have to know that for a lot of things. I'm kind of covering it in my discrete math course, but not really. I
Right.
don't know. Cool concepts though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it gets down to the first principle, right? So like
Mhm.
like I'm not sure how useful it is when I'm actually like working on an actual project, but like it's still, I think, good to know like how everything works on the low level.
I think it's pretty useful. I don't know. I
Well,
haven't
did you
been in
did you
the
did you have to
industry, but
use any of the knowledge that like you learned in class during like when you were working on your projects or your hackathons?
uh, not for hackathons because I haven't had any web design or engineering courses. But I mean, I don't know. I think like when I was in APCSA with you, right? I mean, you saw me coding my own projects in class and stuff like that, right? Like, I think it was definitely useful, especially when it comes to, like game engine programming, which is something I was interested in. Like, you definitely need to know a lot from school. And like, or at least, I mean, you don't need to go to school. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like, it actually uses stuff that you learn in school. Um, especially like linear algebra and multivariate. Like, those are actually like really important things in like I'd say 3D projections or just any kind of engine. But as far as coding algorithms, like I feel like that's less of like a personal project thing and more, I don't know. I mean, I do actually use it. Like I'm just thinking now for the audio thing I was talking about earlier,
Yep.
um, for connecting like nodes together, that's something like you'd use a link or something of the sort, some kind of binary tree or whatnot.
Us.
But
Well,
like I don't know. I haven't really learned like a super large amount of complex data structure, so I don't know how much I can talk about that, but
right.
that's
Yeah, well,
interesting though.
yeah, like for my projects, like I mean, like for my personal stuff, I mainly code in Python. It's just easier, you know.
Hmm.
Like most of that is already embedded. Like the Python list, like it's like a dynamic list or whatever. Like probably all of the linked lists, like trees or whatever, it's all
Hmm.
embedded within it. So like I don't have to worry
Yeah,
about that as much. But
yeah. But like if you're using them, you still would want to know how they work.
yeah, exactly,
Like
exactly. That's what
I wouldn't want to go on a whole like sidetrack of like trying to figure out how linked list works after I implement it, right? Like especially if it's a large project. So
right.
I don't know. I actually don't
Like
know
it's still
Python.
important,
That's
I think.
yeah, it's still important. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess you technically don't have to for these high level languages, but like you should. It's not guaranteed that you'll ever have to use a high level programming language. So, um, though I feel like most things are like in Java, C Sharp, or JavaScript, which are pretty high level. So I
Yeah.
don't know. You can argue whether it's important or not. I don't know.
I don't know, bro. Like I feel like you still need to know them. Like even if you're
Yeah,
not implementing it, like you still need to know.
better to know them than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of curious about like the games that you've been building. Like what games have you been working on? Like do you want to just give like a high level overview on like how you actually built these games?
Yeah. So I guess starting in senior year of high school, right, when that independent study I did for game development, um, that was like the first thing I was like actually passionate about. Um, it was pretty hard. I use Unity for that, right? Which is like I'm not developing my own engine from scratch, but it's still hard because you have to not only deal with programming, but like with also art, music, story, planning, whatnot, right? Collaboration. Because I had another partner doing it. So it's a hard process. I'd say like if you're using a game engine that exists, I don't think if you're coding a game by yourself, I don't think like over half of it's going to be programming. I think most of your time is going to be spent on art. Um,
Bro. Okay.
art if I mean if you care about that, right? Like you see all these stylized indie games, like I bet their art team worked super hard on it. And it's kind of overshadowed by like, oh, actually no, actually I don't think art's overshadowed. But like I think people think programming takes a lot more time than it does when it comes to game development, unless you're doing something that's like super program heavy, right? Like you're creating a new like simulation of like who knows what that's never been done before. Like then you have to put a little process into coding. But like in my experience, the bottleneck is like all of the art.
The visuals.
Um,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, the visuals. Like for example, one project I've been working on is I've been like I don't know, I work on a bunch of stuff and I don't finish it. Like that's kind of just like that's kind of what you got to do as someone who likes art or programming.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been trying to learn a lot more Blender. Do you know Blender? Like the
Yeah, I've
modeling
heard of it. Yeah.
software. Yeah. I think like if you're trying to code a 3D game, that's like an essential, right? Um, because I don't want to just like asset steal, like make an asset swap game. Like th those are always boring. Um, I want to actually create my own stuff. So like creating, for example, an FPS game, like you need to create the weapon, you need to rig the weapon and then animate it and then get it to work with programming. Like it's a lot of work if you're just like one thing. Um,
I see. Right.
so yeah, the process is pretty hard.
Okay. I'm just kind of curious, like, how does it, like, what, like, first of all, like, what even is a game engine, right? And like, how does the game engine play into like the game you're creating? Because you said that like you have to code every weapon and stuff, right? So like, what is the
Mhm.
game engine doing in the background?
Yeah, so like if you look at the most like the industry standards of today, right? You have like Unreal Engine, Unity, Godot, um, Scratch. No, I wouldn't say Scratch, like stuff like that, right? The reason people use these, like, if you're like a AAA company, you're not going to be using one of these, probably. These are mostly like for indie developers. Um, it's because like they kind of set everything up for you. Like it's less customization. It's like think about it like this. It's like a high versus low level language, right? Kind of. Like Unity and Unreal, they're super capable. They can make professional AAA quality games. Um, but like you don't need to know about the inner workings for them, right? It's not like you're coding something from scratch. It's not yours. It's just you're using like an engine is just a tool to make a game, right? Um,
Huh?
it compiles your scripts for you. It compiles everything for you. You can import your art. You can animate within it, whatnot. Like you don't have to create the GUI. You don't have to create a like the level editor if it's already built in, stuff like that. Um, like say you wanted to build your own game with your own engine. A really common thing to do today is like build your own voxel engine. Do you know what voxels are?
No, I don't know what that is.
It's like it's like Minecraft. Like that's a voxel type game, like cubes and a grid. Um, it's like 3D pixels pretty much. Um, I mean, if you search up like voxel engine online, you'll get like 1,000 videos of people making their own engines and games. But like to actually create an engine like that, you have to first get all of your 3D projections working, right? Be able to turn a 2D representation of something or like a 3D space, and then you have to convert it into an actual 3D points by projecting it into 2D space because our screens are 2D, right? Um, and that's a linear algebra 101 right there, right? Like transforming stuff, transforming vectors into new places.
Orthogonal
Um,
projections, right? Is it
or
that's the
yeah, so like
algorithm?
you'll have you'll work with rotational matrices, 3D transformations, right? And then you'll do 2D projection matrices, and then you got to do like vector math. You have to get lighting working, right? So that could take many forms. Like there's voxel lighting, there's area lighting, there's like ray casting, right? I don't know. There's so much stuff. All I'm saying is it takes a long time to implement all of this stuff, if especially if you're one developer, right? Um, because there's one thing, there's visuals, and then there's physics, and then there's some you have to get your art into there somehow and make your workflow better by adding a GUI. Like you have to code that yourself. Um, it's a lot of work.
I
Like
see.
I'd
Okay,
say
got it.
creating a 2D engine is a lot easier,
Mhm.
right? If you want to make a platformer game and for some reason you don't want to use some of the resources out there, that's a lot easier. But like 3D stuff is really challenging. Like it's taken years for these companies to get these engines working so
Yeah.
well, and now you have to do that all from scratch. Like, I mean, technically you're doing it more specifically for one reason, but still a lot of work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the engine is kind of it's kind of like a compiler, right? Like it takes all the code you've written, you put it into this engine or whatever, and then it outputs like the game for you. Is it like that's
Yeah.
what I'm getting? Like it combines all the work that all like the separate work you've done into this one cohesive output.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a tool for making games that allows you to do everything you need to make a game on it, right?
Yeah.
Like you still have to code and you still have to make your art and whatnot, but it's just you put it all into this program and you use the program's like already built functions to make it into a game, right? Um, so yeah, you still have to script and like anime and whatnot, but like all the logic is kind of not handled by the game engine, but like facilitated by it. It allows you to do this a lot easier.
Mhm.
Um, so
Cool. Yeah.
yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. You've worked on so many projects, right? You've worked on like the music projects, all of these games. I got a question for you. Like for all of these projects, have you used any like AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek at all? You know, especially DeepSeek. Like you have to use DeepSeek, bro. You have to.
I've never used DeepSeek.
Bro.
Um,
You
I
should
mean, to
use
be
it.
fair,
Like
it's really
and,
new.
and, and put some of your personal information in there as well, just so like you can
Yeah,
understand your
I've
situation better.
I've seen the memes, and I don't necessarily like. I get it's good at math and stuff, but like, anyways, I have not used DeepSeek. Um, I of course I do use ChatGPT for a lot of coding. Like that is, I feel like you're kind of stupid if you don't, because a lot of things in coding is redundant. Um, for example, if you're making a class and you have like 20 variables and you want to like write out each setter and getter method for these variables, you could do that by hand. I mean, sure, it only take you like 10 minutes, but like, why not just throw it in so ChatGPT can do it? Or like debugging code that's like the tiniest little mistake and you can't figure it out. Like sometimes AI will help you with that. Um, so I mean, like I have my opinions against AI, but like I also think um if you're using it in a way that doesn't like hinder your learning, like if I'm using AI for something I don't understand and I implement that, that's bad, right? Um, you can learn from AI and you can ask AI to like do something for you that you don't understand, but as long as you get what it's doing and you can reproduce that by yourself, then that's fine. Um, because like imagine AI were to disappear right now, like 25% of people who think they're like really good at coding who like rely on ChatGPT suddenly don't know how to code, right? Um,
Right.
so you still have to know how to use your resources, like Google things, right? find out like I mean coding has always been like a copy paste thing, right? Get code from people online and like rewrite it so it works with your program. Um, so I mean AI kind of does the same thing, but now you don't actually have to understand what it does. So
Right.
I think it's kind of a trade-off, right?
I completely agree. Yeah. Like I see, at least for ChatGPT right now, I see it as more like an automation for coding rather than like a substitute for it. Right? Like you
Hmm.
still need to like especially if you're just like working on like a leak code problem or whatever, like ChatGPT can probably do it for you. But like if you're working on like a large scale project, like you still ultimately need to know like what you're doing, like the general frameworks. Like all ChatGPT is gonna help you do is maybe like debug some tiny mistakes or like write out the syntax. Like you still, if you don't know the
Hmm.
concepts or like coding behind like the actual methodologies behind what you're doing, then like I don't think AI is gonna be very helpful.
Yeah. I like I completely agree with that, right? Like you see all these people online saying like I built a game with ChatGPT in like an hour, right? But like I guarantee you that a lot of people who are posting these videos
Yeah.
could also code that game themselves. Um, and there's no reason that they can't do it except that like the purpose of the video is to show that like yeah, AI is getting better at coding, right? But like if you get someone who has no idea what game development is, no idea how to program a game, and they try to use AI to program like a huge fleshed out game, it'll either come out looking like a disaster or they'll give up after the first bug that ChatGPT for some reason doesn't know how to fix, right? Um, so like there's like AI warriors, right? Who's like, oh, you can create anything if you know how to prompt it well enough, which is like sometimes true. Um, but like why? Just why? Like just
Hey man,
learn how to do
like
it.
if I'm trying to code a game with AI right now, right? I would just get open up O3, tell it to write a game, and then reprompt it like 20 times. And like I think it'll work, maybe. But probably not.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
Yeah,
it
like you
just
definitely
like
need to know the foundational concepts. Like I don't think AI is that easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it helps, like it will do it for you, and a lot of times it will do it correctly. But like it doesn't always understand what you want, right? Which means you have to like question it a bunch. But sometimes it just doesn't work, right? Like I've tried experimenting ChatGPT like programming stuff for me, specifically with like Java visuals with JFrame, and it just does not do it well. Like I'll ask it to like fix a bug and it just doesn't fix it. And you ask like 10 more times and it just makes more bugs, right?
Right.
So like you have to be really good at backtracking and then re-asking it, right? Stuff like that. But like if you can't fix these bugs yourself, like how do you know what to prompt it, right? Like I don't know. It's kind of a paradox. Like
I mean, like I
I
see
would
it
I
similar. Sorry, go ahead. You go first.
no, I was pretty much done with the thing.
Yeah, I see it similar as like a calculator, right? Like if you need to like add like 1,500,083 or whatever with like another huge number, like I can do it by
Hmm.
hand, but I have this machine here to help me. Like at least right now, I think that's what these AI models are like
Yeah,
capable.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious, like what do you think long term AI is gonna unfold into since you are pretty deep into tech? Like, are you optimistic? Do you have like concerns?
So I think one interesting to bring up about that is, have you heard about the new graphics cards NVIDIA released, like the 50 series? Have you heard anything about
I've
those?
heard some news about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like every year or two, they'll release a new series, right? Um, and usually, like they're either like the same thing copy pasted, like a little bit better and more expensive, right? Um, but this year they were generally cheaper, and they were claimed to have better performance, right? Like way better performance. Um, but like, do you know the reason behind that? I'll just see if you know this because
Is it just like to for AI training since there's so much demand
yeah,
for that?
it's not well, it is trained on it's pretty much a software upgrade of the previous models. Um, but now it runs in something called DLSS. So I mean that was previously a thing before, but like it's just generative frames, right? It's like you're playing a video game that has DLSS allowed. And what you're doing is like you generate one frame, like all the whole image, you generate the lighting, the physics, blah blah blah. And then the next frame, you don't generate that, you just copy it, but then use AI to interpret what it should look like.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, so people are it's kind of controversial. And on one hand, it's a lot faster because you don't have to generate like the whole math behind every scene, right? Um, but like there's these new cars, they can do up to DLSS 4, which means they generate 4 frames for every real frame. So that like 5/4 of what you're seeing is fake. Um, so like now I'm kind of forgetting what the question. Oh yeah, so the future, the future of AI.
Okay.
People are kind of like everything is speeding up, but everything's feeling more manufactured, more fake, right? Like people are complaining about how the graphics look shaky sometimes, or like they don't feel like it's right. Like they get smoother frames, but it's not real. Like I just feel like our whole world now is going into a place where everything could potentially be AI generated, even if you don't know it or not. And I feel like that's not something I really support that much. Like I like the other day I was listening to music on YouTube. I was on a soundtrack, an hour playlist. The whole thing was AI generated, and they had nowhere in the description that was AI generated. They didn't credit any artist, which is why I knew it was AI generated because the music is getting so good now. Um, but like you have these like channels who like upload like hour-long soundtracks every day, and they're not making the music, so obviously it's AI. Um,
When
and
you
it's just like I don't think,
you were
yeah.
listening to AI generated like music for an hour, like did you know if it
No,
was?
I can if you produce music, you can tell generally pretty fast, especially if it has vocals. But for stuff like lo-fi or like calm music, there's no way you can tell. No way at all. But the point is like I don't think anybody should be listening to like, for example, AI music without knowing it's AI music. Right? Like something about that just feels, as someone who's into art so much, it just feels really unethical. I mean, I don't think there's any real bad reason for that. Like people can generate as much AI music as they want and publish it, but like they should really brand it as being AI, right? Like I most people who would watch those videos don't know it's AI. And something about that just bothers me. Like I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like that's where we're headed, right? Like um so much stuff is just generatives and then that gets mixed into the pool of like real stuff, right? But like that AI stuff might win, and people might not know it's AI. So that takes away attention from the people who are actually producing it, right? Like there's this whole argument of like if it's as good, why not let that happen? Um,
Yeah.
but it just feels unethical. Like I don't know if it is. I can't really describe it, but like as someone who produces music, as someone who creates art, like it just feels like something's being taken, right? And I bet a lot of people also feel that. Um, but I don't know if there's a solution, right? I don't know. What do you think?
I would say I would say I agree with that. Like if we're thinking about it this way, right? AI is like it's basically trained on a lot of data and it learns from this distribution on the trained data, right? And then when it's generating, it basically uses that distribution to generate new things. So
Hmm.
like the stuff it's generating is not actually creating anything new, right? It's just repeating over and over what it's learned, except in new permutations,
That's true,
right?
but like
But
I
if you
would,
look at, yeah, yeah, you want to go first?
no, I would just say I would argue that like rearranging stuff that's already out there in the world is still something new. Um, like I'm trying to think of an example, but like just because like if you think about like if you go back to generative music, right? It's taking themes that from like real human produced music. Like that's why it does popular genre so well because there's so much of it and it's so formulaic, right? But just because it's copying these themes doesn't mean it's just like I mean, it is just statistical variation, but like it's still original, right? That's why it's technically free use. Like I see what you mean, right? It's just like regurgitating stuff it's taken in, right? I mean, but like humans are kind of like that the same way, right? Like the only reason I can produce as well is because I've been inspired and I've learned from other music. So technically, I'm just regurgitating what I know from other people, except there is the new thing of my brain thinks like creatively, right? Um, but still, like I'm still taking pieces of what I've learned from other people and putting it into my own music. Um, which is like, I don't know, it's definitely different, but like I still think these AI generated things are still like original,
Mhm.
which is the scary part, right? But
I
yeah,
mean,
sorry, what were you saying?
I, I would I would say that I would say that it's like it's definitely true. Like we take inspiration from other things, right? So if you think about it that way, like we're in a way, we learn things. We take a course on like music production or whatever. That's how we train ourselves, and then based on what we learned there, we would create new things, right? But I think there's
Hmm.
like another aspect of human ingenuity. Like when we create like a piece of art, we're actually like advancing something, right?
Hmm.
Like even though we're like we have like training data in our minds technically, but there's still like this aspect of ingenuity that allows us to create something that's genuinely new. But for AI, like it's only trained on the past. There's nothing like new that it brings forwards. But for individuals, like when we create a piece of art, there is something that's like new inherent in that thing. Like like I would say
Well,
that's the main difference.
I'll
Like
ask
even
you.
though you can say like the songs are new because like the notes are arranged differently or whatever, like it's still based completely on the past. But like us, like we have free will. You can argue that we don't, but whatever. Uh, like we still bring something new to it, if you get what I mean.
I get what you mean, and I somewhat agree with that, but like there's plenty of examples of AI inventing something. Um, like for example, well, I mean, it's always like assisted by a human, right? Like no AI is going to invent something while a human prompting it to invent something, but it can still happen. Like there's a while back ago, like there was some kind of rocket engine that was like revolutionized by AI, like a new kind of way to create. I don't know exactly what it was. It was a while ago. I don't know how valid it was, but like what I'm trying to say is like just because AI takes from the past doesn't mean it can't formulate it into something that is new. Like just because like we can kind of put things together to invent, we're just kind of discovering new things about the past that we didn't discover before, right? Like for example, there might be like I don't know, I'm just throwing an idea out there. Say there was a way to do like um some kind of mathematical equation like really fast, like faster than any mathematician can do it, right? I don't know, like say taking the derivative of some complicated function currently is impossible, right? But like it is possible, we just haven't found a way to do it. We can do it with our resources, but we just no one's found a way to like find pieces to solve this, right? But an AI can search in the past to find all these pieces that may be able to solve it and put it together, and then suddenly invented a new way to solve something that's already been in the past. It's just humans didn't find it, right? It's like I mean I don't know how viable this stuff and
Okay.
is and like how often it happens, right? But you kind of see what I'm saying, like
Right.
just because it takes stuff from the past doesn't mean it can't push it into new things that innovate us forward, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that's generative though. I feel like that's more of using AI as a tool for optimization, right?
But if it invents something, it's still inventing something, right?
Yeah, but that's more of like using AI as like a tool to do something. It's not like generating images or generating words, I feel.
That I mean, yeah, that's like so. What exactly are you talking about when it comes to innovation? Because that's something you were talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What like can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm more like I would say I'm more talking about um I would say I'm more talking about like language models, like how language models work. Like learn a bunch of words and then like you take samples from that distribution to like get new things. But like
Hmm.
obviously there's other models. Like you input a piece of information and then it outputs something else. Like for example, like there's this new AI thing. It's like like it managed to figure out like how proteins fold or whatever. Like we've been trying to spend like 200 years or whatever trying to or like a long time trying to understand how these proteins unfold. But then we trained this model that like now basically just helped us figure out like hundreds or like thousands or something of other
Hmm.
proteins. And right, like that AI literally helped us make new discoveries, right? But
Hmm.
I would say like that model isn't necessarily generative. I would just more classify that as like an AI model for like You know, I I, I
Yeah,
feel like that model is like different from an LLM or like a music
yeah,
generated AI.
I'd agree, but it's still innovated, right? It's discovering something that we did not discover before. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
but like it's like a
Like,
tool that we use, right?
but I mean, tool or not, regardless, right? It's still that's something that I mean, you're arguing that it's based off of like a bunch of past information, which is I totally agree. Like that's how they're built. But like now it's doing something that we can't with the information that I got from the past, right?
That's true. That we can't do ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's no guarantee that like say AI didn't exist and say 5 years from now, some human was able to like find out the secret formula for unfolding proteins, right? Like, I mean, there's like we could maybe like I don't know if that's a good example, but like I think that's similar to what computers do.
That makes
Like,
sense.
I don't know how much new information is actually being thrown into the world, right? Like, new information, I think, would be like scientific discoveries, right? Like, finding literally new things we don't know about. Um, but when it comes to like um, actually innovating in technology, all we're doing is really just optimizing what we already have or finding new ways to do things using information we already know about, right? And that's kind of what AI does. Like I'm no expert in AI, but um like I think it's the edge it has over humans is that it just do that really fast. Like it has access to everything when no one human has access to everything, right? Um so yeah, like I totally get what you're saying. Um but I think it still can create new things like humans can, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I don't
That's
think there's any restriction with that,
right.
right? I don't know. It's really confusing, right?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, you're right.
I mean, what defines something new? Um, I don't know. That's like a whole other conversation, right?
Right, right. Yeah, because they're like
But what?
like in that case, like we can't do it, right? But the AI can. So like, is the AI creating something new? Like,
Hmm.
like what is that edge over us, right? And
Yeah.
like if we're gonna if we're gonna relate that to music, like you said, right? Like if AI has an edge over us in terms of like protein, like unlock protein discovery or whatever, like is like would it be possible to get the AI to have an edge over us in art creation?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think there's already areas where it does, right? Like I think art creation is like literal visual art. That's a whole different topic. Um, because if you take Stable Diffusion, right? What like most of I don't know if that's still popular. Like that's what most models at least used to use, where it generates a noise map and it literally fills in the noise like
Pixels, right?
each area one by one, statistically based off of what should go there, right? Based on the prompt that's like if you think about the process of how it generates art that way, like it's nowhere near what a human does, right? Like a human thinks of the whole picture first and they just fill it in. Like they sketch each
Yeah.
part, knowing, I mean, you don't always need to know what the final product will look like, but you're not like going pixel by pixel, right? Um, so when it comes to that, it's like it definitely gets more complicated on like what's innovation and what's just like statistical prediction. Um, But yeah, I think if it was to do something like that, no one's like if it was to generate a piece of artwork based on the prompt with Stable Diffusion, that piece of art has never been built before, right? You can argue whether it's good or not, whether it's like original or not, but it's still no one's made that. It's never been in the world before, and it's only getting better, right?
Even if it's based on the
Um,
past, right? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like we're saying like everything's based on the past, right? But like what's not based on the past? Like I don't know that.
Okay, well,
It's interesting. Like
let me ask you this then. Like, do you think there's anything unique that humans bring to the table versus an AI in creating art?
in art or in general.
Let's just say art in art right now.
So you're asking if there anything humans have over AI in uniqueness, like
Yeah,
you
like
know
an
that.
AI creates a piece of art versus a human
Hmm.
creates a piece of art. Is there like anything unique that the human brings?
I think so. If you look at the actual output, if you're some observer just looking at what the output is, and you don't know the process was going into creating it, I would say the only difference is like coherence, like coherency. Like the human art might be um, more put together than AI, right? Like a human can notice more like societal mistakes, like mistakes everyone knows is a mistake that a human might. Like the common thing is like, an AI will draw four fingers or something, right?
Okay, yeah.
A human won't do that because they'll know for a fact that like in society, no, like it's okay. I wouldn't say no people have four fingers. Like it's like on average, people have five fingers, right?
Yeah.
Um, on average. Um, so what I'm trying to say is like, I mean, obviously a human, if they're not like, if they don't want to draw coherent art, it won't be coherent. But like, I'm just saying, um, an AI doesn't always get things
Like
right,
context.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the context, exactly. Um, but if you actually think about what goes into creating the art, then I think humans have a way different experience, right? A human will create art based on their own emotion, their own styles. Like an AI doesn't have a style. And AI is whatever style it finds on the internet, right? Um, but then again, you can argue a human, like a style of a human painter is just whatever they've learned to do from other people,
Sure.
right? Like it all spirals back to like what we've learned. I mean, we're all just little babies when we're born. Like we don't have anything. We gain context from our surroundings. So that's kind of what an AI is doing, right? But the process of drawing for a human is way different. It's a different meaning, right? But I don't think that means anything to a lot of people, like non-artists.
I don't know. I mean,
Like
like
you do,
these are
you do
big
art.
topics, man. I mean, like people think like philosophers, AI ethics people, like they think about this all day. So like these are
Yeah.
important topics that we like. I think we have to think about as AI gets even better. You know.
Okay. You do art, so I want to know like, well, I don't know if you still draw in your free time, because I think it definitely is less common for like
I mean,
college
it's
students who
definitely getting
just drew.
busier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like, how do you feel about just AI art in general? Like, I know you are pretty interested in the inner workings of AI, right? But how do you feel on the artistic side about what it does? Like, do you feel uncomfortable at all with it, or is it just kind of like you're embracing it?
No, I feel like if I enter like an art competition, right, and like like an AI generated piece of art wins the thing, and you know, like humans we get like 10th place or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I think they definitely need to be separated.
Mm.
I don't think it should be equal to
Yeah.
yeah. Because
Do you
and
think?
another thing, actually, another thing I think that's is different is like the process of like there's a whole journey of creating a piece of art
Yeah.
when you're like
Yeah.
drawing it, you know, you're thinking about it. I feel like that's also a very important aspect of like real life painting versus just generated. Like generation, it just like that and it gets it gets created.
I agree, but I don't think that the average consumer really would care that much, right? It's like if you looked at um the Google like image like say you were searching up like some random inspiration for a drawing, right? Or just anything. You look at the Google images, like when you look through them, do you care about what the process of creating that was like? Or are you just trying to find something that fits your desires,
No, well,
right?
in that case, I don't care. But like, if you're talking about the actual artistic case, I think that is very
Yeah,
important. Like a Van Gogh
yeah.
painting, like before people knew it was a Van Gogh painting, like it's like so subjective, right? Before people knew it was Van Gogh painting, um, it was worth like $15, and then suddenly people found out, oh shoot, that was like one of his earliest works, and then the price
Mm,
shoots up to 50 million because like it was this because like that piece was like in that period of his life, right? like the story and context behind it has a lot to do with it.
Here's a question. I agree with that. I know exactly what you're talking about. But like hear me out. NFTs. Okay. AI generated NFTs. Like I don't know. Like in the early times, I don't know if they're still popular. Do you know? I
No,
don't
they're
know.
not, bro. It
But
was a
yeah, they're
bubble.
not
Yeah.
yeah. But like those were like some of those were worth millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they were AI generated, a lot of them. Um, they have value. They might not have emotion behind how they were made, right? But like the context behind them gave them value, how stupid or not it was, right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is like, do you think AI art generated now in the far future will have a value like Van Gogh does to us now? Like, even though there's no emotion behind creating it, there could still be context that makes it
Right. Okay.
like, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, well, if we're gonna talk about NFTs, right? At that time, a lot of them did have context. Like they had like a
That's
whole
true. Yeah.
community. They built a story around it, right? They didn't just release it and the price shot up. Like they had a story. And also another part of it is like that's they had some context behind them. Another part is like it's just like a classic financial bubble, you know? Like
Yeah,
people
that's true.
saw money coming in, people pumped more money into it, and that's why like it crashed so badly, like
Hmm.
in 2022. But yeah, but I would say like if an AI art has context, has a story behind it, then yeah, then like that could
Hmm.
make people. It's all about it's like so subjective, you know. It's like it kind of differs how you perceive it. But I think if I just generate a P, like PNG file or whatever on the web, like I feel like it's missing a lot of the like it doesn't have as much depth. It has nowhere as much depth
Hmm.
because it's missing so much of like the process, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like human art has that edge of like um like just emotion, right? Like it has a reason to be there that's kind of inspired by the person who created it. Um, which like if you were buying artwork, say you want a poster for your wall in your dorm room, like you'd probably care if it was human made or AI generated,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Like I wouldn't want to hang an AI generated poster on my wall. Like that's like that would terrify me. I don't know. Something about that just like feels really cheap. Um,
Right.
right? Even if it's like a Photoshop like image, like I don't know. Like I just feel like I need human art
Yeah, yeah.
rather than
No,
AI art.
no.
Like,
Actually, Ryan, you know what that just made me think of? Like, like
yeah,
all of these like high-end bags, like they all say it's handmade, right? Like it's like sewn
yeah,
by hand instead of in a factory. Like it's not like automated or like really high-end furniture. Like okay, like we got three like 60-year-old bearded builders like building this thing.
yeah,
But they spent like 20 years of their life into building this, right? Versus a like a table you get at IKEA. Like there's just something I don't know. Like there's something unique about like a human put their work into it.
hmm. I'm trying to think. I agree with you. I'm trying to think why that is. Is it like because like in reality you have an artwork that's created by AI, an artwork that's created by human, and they have the same amount of desirability if you don't know which is generated by AI,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Why would we rather have the human photo? Like, is it just like a human to human thing, right? Like we need that sort of that realness, like the AI is too artificial, right? But like, or is it just like a societal thing? Like we don't want AI art because um like it just doesn't feel natural. Like I don't know. It's
I mean, okay, like I think part of the reason is like we like things that are unique, that are like actually like genuinely like individualistic, you know? Like if something's mass produced in a factory, there's like 1,000
mm,
of that same thing. Like its value immediately, at least in our perception, it immediately goes down. But like if you have like a one of a kind, someone spent like poured years into this one single thing, and that's the only thing
that's
that's
true.
like in the world. Like I feel like there's just more value to it. And same thing with like these
Yeah.
AI art, like you can generate like a million images in like 1 second if you have enough computes. But Like a real piece, you can't really do that. Right.
Yeah. I agree. But like I still feel like that like I don't know if I put a poster up on my wall if I care too much about the actual value of it, right? Like if it's a one to one. Like I can get a random poster off of Etsy that's probably in like a thousand people's dorm rooms already, right? Because it's printed. Um, but like if it's AI generated, I wouldn't want it, even if it's in like 10 people's rooms, right?
Yeah.
Like I think what you're saying definitely has a value to it. I just don't know if that's like enough to warrant like the artificial feeling of AI stuff, right? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I just feel like the way like most people just feel uneasy about AI means something. Like I feel like it has a value, right? Like society wouldn't be kind of fearful about something this big if it didn't have some kind of like drawback, I feel like. Um, like we could argue all day of whether or not jobs will be taken, right? But it's still like I think most people can agree AI is it feels really like not inhumane, but like unnatural. It feels really artificial. And that's I don't know if that's like something we want to be like largely everywhere in society, right? Especially since everything's so like human built at least like 5 years ago, right? I don't know. It just feels weird, right? Like I like even if you really like AI, you like I feel like most people would agree that it's weird.
Yeah, yeah. Like my English teacher told me recently, like we were discussing about AI, right? She taught a whole class on language before, and she said like this is like the first time that like in the past like we basically have language, right? We have language, like we
Hmm.
use language with each other, right? Like this is like the first time that like language is talking back to us through these
Yeah.
AI models. Like that's like completely new in human history. So
Yeah. Like I just remembered something. Like I remember seeing like 6, 7 years ago online. Um, like this is before I even knew what AI was. There was some video of like some dude who programmed this like really unintelligent AI how to like recreate Drake songs or something. Like, I don't remember what artist it was. Um, but like it was really bad. Like the lyrics were really bad, but it was like kind of coherent. Um, but like when you think about AIs back then as just like a program that was like predicting random words and like you could tell it was super fake. Like that was just kind of entertaining, right? Like it had no meaning. Like it was just another programming project, right? Um, but nowadays when you can't decipher what's human and what's AI, it's like it's like the first time we've ever encountered this, right? Like I don't know. It doesn't feel like some random technology anymore. It feels like something that's actually bigger than that, right? Like nothing else that's been invented in the past, right, has had the same kind of effect. Like I remember we talked about this. Like I remember us in APCS art, right? Um, we were talking all the time about uh what was it, the printing press or the loom? I don't remember.
sewing
Do you
machine.
remember sewing machine or something like that? Yeah, about how like people thought it'd be the end of the world. How it would ruin all of human manufactured goods and whatnot, and then it didn't, right? But like, can we really argue that stuff like that is on the same level as an intelligent large
I
language
think
model,
okay.
right?
Right.
I don't
We're
know.
gonna go back, bro. You're gonna rewind time back again. All right, sure. Okay, here's what I think. Right, I like right now. I don't think we have AGI yet, which is like AI is not sentient. Like I still think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, currently, even though like AI is like mimicking human activity at such a level, but I still don't think it is I don't think it is human or is
Yeah.
conscious at all. I still think it's a tool. As long as it
Hmm.
remains a tool, I think it'll like tools can be used like for positive or negative, right? You have a car, like you can
Hmm.
drive it into the sidewalk and kill a lot of people, or you can use it correctly. So tools can still be used for negative, like for negative purposes. But
Yeah.
like in as a whole, I don't think this tool is gonna take over all the jobs. Like we still need humans to wield this tool. Like you said,
Hmm.
like when building video games, if you don't know the concepts, like the foundational concepts, you have no idea what you're doing. If you're like an English language arts major, you have like an idea of a game and you type it in, like I don't think the AI can just immediately build it out for you. Like you still need to know some stuff. However, it will make a lot of things more productive, and that productivity may lead to like some some people getting fired in the short term. But like when people get more productive, that's going to generate more wealth, and that wealth is going to get
Hmm.
invested, which in turn is going to create more wealth and
I agree.
more
Yeah.
jobs. Yeah, like that's
But
how I think.
I agree. Like if it stays as a tool that we can use, then that's good. But like what's the threshold? Like it's always improving. So when does it not become a tool and more of like a controller, right? Like, are you saying you think that could never happen? Or are you saying if it happened, like if it, or sorry, you're saying it if it never happened, if it never went beyond a tool, then it would be good, which I agree.
Mhm.
But like, are you saying that it can never happen? Like it can never advance beyond a tool?
I mean, I can't see the future, man, but like just from
I
what
know.
I learned
Yeah.
right now, yeah, just from what I learned right now, like it's still all statistical modeling right now. Like it's
Yeah.
still ultimately
Oh.
based on math. Like an LLM, like if you give it a prompt, like it's deterministic, right? Like if you don't
Mhm.
take a random sample, like you just take the highest probability word, if you enter the same prompt every single time, it's gonna output the same thing every single time, right? So,
Mhm. Well,
you know,
kind of. I mean,
like
it'll gain the same, it'll take in the same information, but like it'll regurgitate it back at you differently. Like it still has
no,
a
it'll do the
randomness, right?
same. It'll get you regurgitate the same thing every single time. Like if you don't take a random sample, like like how it usually works right now is like you give it a prompt and then each word will have like a distribution, right? Like 90% it's
Hmm.
the, 90% it's who or whatever. Like if you just take the highest probability word every single time, it'll just if you give it the same prompt, it'll return the same thing back to you.
I mean, at a base level, yeah, yeah. But like if you're using like a wrapper, or if say you're using ChatGPT, if I mean you see it happen sometimes. You import a message and it splits it. It gives you two responses, right? Like it doesn't always give the information to you in the same way because they're trying to mimic a human. Like they're trying to give it a sort of randomness, right? Um, so while it's probably pulling in the same information, even if it gives you a different response, it might not display it the same way, which is like a really weird human characteristic that is not really necessary. I mean, but it also helps it like diversify if that's something that
Diversifies the output.
like if it realizes you need something specific, maybe it might like cater towards you more than someone else, right? Um, but I just like even if it's just statistical, it's all statistics, like I don't think that means anything. Like the fact that it can innovate, the fact that a lot of people are already reliant on using it as a tool and can't do stuff themselves, the fact that humans themselves are always calculating things that they know they should say based on what they've already known is good for them. Like what I'm saying right now is something I'm thinking about because I know how to speak because I've learned English, right? Like I've literally like learned the words and I'm just sorting through them in my head right now and I know naturally what to say. Like and you could argue that's the same thing an AI does, like a large language model. Um, which I think goes back to what your teacher was saying, right? Your professor who's saying like there's never been a case where like something's talked back to us in the same language like this, right?
Right.
So like statistics or not, it might not operate the same as a brain, but it's still the fact that it can mimic us almost like to an I'm forgetting English, um, unidentifiable amount. It's still concerning. Like, would you agree with that? Like, it's still like maybe not at today's standard, but who knows in a year and 2 years, right? Like,
I mean, I just feel like AGI is not gonna come anytime soon. Like that's
I
what like I think like
I
to
don't
get like
can
high
you
level reasoning to get like consciousness or like
I mean, does that exist?
that's philosophical. All right, maybe I shouldn't say consciousness. High like
Okay,
reasoning as high level as us. Like I don't know. Like I just can't see that it can
like
like maybe,
But like
but
I feel like
I
we can
just can't
argue.
see it as like replacing humans as a whole. Like I still view it as like as long as humans have some involvement, like AI can do like 90% of things, and I think that's good for us. As long as humans have a 10%, as long as we still need humans by 10%, like jobs are not like incredible levels of wealth are gonna be produced, and jobs are not gonna like everyone's gonna get richer by like 100 times, and that wealth is gonna be reinvested into new things which are gonna need new humans, right? Like for
So
example, for example, for farming, right? Like there's barely any farmers now, bro. But like 100 years back, 200 years back, almost everyone was a farmer. Like that, like farming technology progressing was such a good thing for humanity because like it progressed to allow us to do new stuff. And I don't think AI has will get to the level anytime soon where like AI can just figure out new stuff like constantly, like where we can just detract from AI completely and like let it do everything. I still think we still need to monitor it. Needs there still needs to be a lot of human involvement within it.
yeah, but you just said anytime soon. So like that's what I'm saying. Like I agree with you. I fully agree with you there. But like humans will always invent new stuff. We're always moving upwards in technology. So how is it possible that we keep like a stagnant relationship of 10 to 90% with AI and not move upward and not increase the power of AI? Like how is that possible? Like I think I don't know if there's ever been an example where humans don't improve something over time, right? Like there's always people who are innovators, right? Like look at anything you have nowadays and look back 1,000 years in the future, it's always going to be better. Well, like 99.999% times,
Yeah,
right? So like what you're saying is like the ideal like utopia where like somehow we maintain this same level of technological innovation in AI and it never one-ups humans, which I don't know if that's feasible, right? Like I feel like that's something that's just naturally not going to happen, but we've never encountered something like this, right? So who knows? But
yeah.
you
I
see what
mean,
I'm saying though?
let's say if that does happen, right? Like, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
If we
Like
keep a
that's so
relationship,
much in the future. Yeah, yeah. I'm just like, let's say AGI, like Sam Altman, like this guy, or like you know, suddenly gives out a new model and it's like conscious now, or like it's got such high reasoning ability that it can just operate everything. Like, I mean, that
I
would mean like none of us have to work anymore. No.
I think AI is at the level of intelligence and reasoning that can already do that. Like you could have anyone of any age talk to an AI without knowing it's an AI. They might find it weird, but they won't know with 100% certainty it's an AI unless like it slips up really badly,
Yeah, right.
right? Like
Well, I'm talking about like operating things, like
no, that's what
currently.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. Okay.
Like because like on the topic of consciousness, right? Like I don't think we need full consciousness in an AI for it to be able to do things that humans can do already, right? It's already past that point. Um, I think like a lot of like I mean more of the physical like labor fields like AI can't do that, right? Yet at least. I mean we have Boston Dynamics and stuff, but like not anytime soon, right? But like actually controlling infrastructure, if we actually wanted to and we replaced all humans and we had enough energy to do that, like I think you could argue it'd be terrible at it, right? But I think it could. Like it could still do
Really,
reasoning. Um,
really.
like AI can argue with other AI models. AI can reason with like it can show empathy no matter how fake it is. It can show like it's still the fact that it can mimic a human means it can do the reasoning a human can't. Um, I mean, like it's albeit it's probably limited, like to a certain extent. Like I don't know, but like the fact that that's could probably be done today is like something to consider for we're only like in the beginning of AI's development, right? Like I don't know. Like I don't know if
I feel
full
like that,
consciousness is a real thing that's needed for AI to take
or
us
like
over.
okay, well, you can explain like replace that with like high level reasoning. Like right now, if I tell AI, it's like build build Ryan's like music dashboard or whatever, like it
Yeah.
probably can't do that. Like we just talked about it, right? Like you still need to know computer science and stuff for it to
Yeah.
for it to do that. Like maybe in the future it will, but
But like I wonder, what if you get like 100 AI models working together like a big company? Like, do you think they could solve something, or do you think it'll just be a giant mess? Like, I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know if anything's like that's been done before. Um, but I think like collaboration is definitely humans have an edge over AI, right? Like actual communication. Um, I mean, like humans are stupid in their own way. Like we all have disagreements and whatnot, but like I feel like we come to better resolutions than AI currently does like that, right? Like AI will always look for the best statistically best answer to everything. But like sometimes there's not a statistically best answer to everything. Um, that AI that humans kind of can reason and like give priority to one thing. I don't know. I don't know. It's complicated.
I mean,
But
these are
like,
big conversations, man. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Sorry, do you have any other questions that's
I
less
mean, that's all
complicated?
I have for now, man. We went over a lot of things together.
Yeah,
Do you have anything
yeah.
else you want to share?
Um, do I have anything else I want to share? I don't know. I'm gonna go, you know what? I'm gonna try DeepSeek after this. I wanna compare it to ChatGPT. Um, I'm I'm actually curious, but like I just want to say like I in no way am I anti AI. Like I literally use AI myself. Um, I just think everyone should like warrant some level of caution, right? Um, like I think that's just a reasonable thing to do when you're using any new technology. Um, so yeah, like use AI at your own risk, right? Like I mean that should be a given. Um, but yeah, like don't cheat on your tests because Peter and I we 50% or something of our class in high school got caught for like integrity violation
Oh
using
yeah.
AI. So it's a real thing. And like, I bet a lot of those people wouldn't be able to do what they think they know how to do if they lost access to their tools, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you use AI
So
for your classes, you're basically taking away from yourself, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
people don't realize the point of a class is not to memorize the information, but to learn how to memorize the information, how to actually like conceptualize it. Like I'm not learning um like any class in high school. Like, I don't remember half the stuff I learned, but it was still a good practice going through studying and whatnot, right? It helps me out now. There's people with terrible study skills, really bad study skills, and that's probably AI is probably a reason for that,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah, but that's all I have
Yeah.
to say.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for coming on. It was
yeah,
great to speak with you, man. And I
yeah.
hope I hope
Thanks
you
for having me.
I hope you complete your projects, I hope they get used a lot. Yeah. And
One day, one
thank you.
day.
All right. See you, man.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.